All right. Well, today on I'll Have Another, we have Molly Grabill on the show. Welcome to the show, Molly.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here. I'm excited to talk with you. Recently placed second at CIM with a big PR. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it was definitely long overdue, and I was, really thrilled with that performance. So,
Yeah, 229 was your goal to break 230. What was your goal there?
yeah, I kind of had some A, B, and C goals going into the race, knowing that the marathon can be, you know, disastrous at times. So, yeah, going into it, I really wanted to break 230. That was kind of my A goal, and so I was really excited to be able to do that.
Yeah, well, let's just do a little introduction before we dive into your marathon progression here. I know you ran for the Oregon Ducks, which that was probably like a dream come true school to run for.
Yeah, it was a tough program to be a part of, but it was super rewarding. I loved being a duck.
What was the tough, like, what was so tough about it?
It's a very competitive program, and it's kind of pretty clear that if you're not scoring or contributing, that you need to be on that team. So it's pretty hard if you're having a tough time, you're battling injuries, or just kind of not athletically where you want to be, um, to see, you know, uh, the athletes that are scoring and doing well and wanting to be there so badly. But
How did you handle that? I mean, and we'll talk about the accident you had as well, but like, how did you handle that at such a young age, being thrown into the toughness of that?
Yeah, I mean, especially coming from high school, if you're going to Oregon, you have experienced success. And I mean, a lot of D1 athletes feel this as well, not just Oregon, but you're so successful in high school, and then you go to college, and then you're just fighting to make the top seven team. And it's just quite a transition. And so the expectation at Oregon is that you kind of hit the ground running and you're ready to go. And I was not ready to go at all my freshman year. I had no concept of, putting in the hard work in high school because it just kind of came. So I didn't really train during the summer, and it was just kind of a rude awakening that first year of like, wow, if I want this, I really got to try hard. So yeah, I mean, it definitely takes time, and you can't expect it to happen all at once. Running is, everything kind of compounds as you go, and the more miles you put in, the longer it takes to pay off. So
Yeah, I'm so curious. What are your thoughts on all that now, looking back, just like high mileage running in college and like really laying the hammer down and like being the top in the country in college versus like, I mean, you can do that and also be really successful professionally. People do that, but like balancing that, like, I really want longevity in the sport and I don't want to burn out. What are your thoughts now that you're a little bit older and past that part of your life?
yeah, I mean, I wasn't crazy high mileage in college, but it definitely was, a track that I looked at to be like, I want to be better now, and I want to just, be cranking out 80 to 90-mile weeks, which in college was pretty high. But I think that I mean, I really leaned into, what my coach Marisa was telling me to do and the steps that she thought I needed to take to be better. And she didn't necessarily believe that I needed to do high mileage. Um, I think for marathon training, it does take away more of your time. You have to block out almost like 3 hours plus if you have to commute for your long run. And it is an investment, but um, it just takes, it definitely takes a while to get there. And jumping into the high mileage stuff, it's also not necessarily the most fun. I think doing quick, fast stuff is more exciting. And um, if you can slow your roll when you get to the long mileage, the high mileage, then um, that's, I think, a better way to go.
Marisa Powell. Wow, I didn't realize the timeline worked out that she was your coach there. I love her.
Hmm.
She's been on the
Yeah.
show before and really one of my favorite interviews. Talk to us about working with her.
She's super fun. I mean, I look up to her. I think that she was a great mentor. And she was so personable. And I mean, our age gap wasn't huge. And so all of the coaches that I had before were male and older, and they were all delightful, and I look up to them all. But it was really important for me as a young woman to have a woman coach who could really understand what I was going through, and I could talk about things that I probably didn't feel comfortable telling, an older man about. So I think that really, that connection that I had with her helped my running as well. So it was great.
Oh, that's so good to hear. I love it when I get to interview a coach and then get to hear from athletes like after the fact, you know.
Yeah, yeah. And I still keep in touch with her today. And she checks in with me every now and then. So it's kind of great to have that relationship.
Okay, listen, we have to talk about the story and what happened to you when you got hit in the head while driving because I'm sure you like don't love rehashing it, but like this is a pretty big part of your story.
Yeah, yeah. It was a, just kind of like one of those freak accidents where, now it's like not really a party story, but it's kind of, people are just kind of in disbelief that it happened. And I was just driving home from Thanksgiving break, and we were probably about an hour outside of Eugene, and someone threw a rock over an overpass, and I was driving the car. It went through the windshield, hit my face, knocked me out. Uh, I don't remember anything from the accident, but this is just kind of what has been recounted to me. I guess I saw it coming down, and I was riding back with a teammate, and he said that I was like, what is that? As it was like coming down.
Oh, wow.
But I don't remember any of it. So I was knocked out, and my foot was still on the gas. We were still on the freeway going, 65 miles an hour. And so he tried to get control of the car and kind of grabbed it, which, yanking the wheel at that speed made us kind of flip. I guess there was like a semi that came in behind us and jackknifed, which honestly was a really good thing because then it blocked the rest of the traffic coming in. But yeah, besides, the head injury from the rock, I was okay, and so was my teammate. He was okay, just a few scratches. So yeah, I was out for, gosh, I want to say a little over 8 months from post-concussive issues. And I was super dizzy, had really bad headaches, vertigo. So I did a lot of like vestibular training. My memory was not super great. I kind of asked a lot of questions, repetitive, simple questions for the first few months. So it took me a long time to heal from that. And brain injury stuff is really frustrating and tough because physically you look fine. And I was like ready to run, ready to get back to training, but the headaches and the vertigo was just too much. So took a semester off of school and just really tried to, I laid in bed for a long, long time. But it slowly did get better. And I was able to enroll back in school and get back to training. So.
Wow. Did that, when we're like in college, most of us are pretty like, I'm invincible, kind of like, I've got a lot of life left to live, but did that change your perspective?
Oh yeah. And just kind of like grounded me in the sense of I was just so thankful to be at Oregon and that I really wanted to compete and be better, and that like I was thankful for the education that I was getting because I was out of school, and all of my teammates were everyone was moving forward in their life and I was kind of standing still. So that was definitely a grounding moment, and I became very grateful and just a lot of gratitude for what I do have.
Yeah, it's like,
Which I feel like at 21, I know most 21-year-olds are just kind of like, oh, like I didn't really celebrate my 21st because, I had headaches and drinking was just I was in a constant state of a hangover already. So it was just not attractive to me at that time.
gosh, when did you like, do you have like migraine bouts now that stem from that?
Um, they're not so much migraines as it is the vertigo that really affects me. Sometimes if I move my head backwards in a certain motion, or I took a ferry last month, and we were on like the undercarriage part of it. I don't know what that's called. But just the movement of that seasick motion was kind of what I felt for those 6 to 8 months. And that kind of triggered, a lot of that, just kind of like that car sick feeling that I had for a long time. So there'll be small things that can trigger it. And I just avoid, roller coasters or anything that, like, I can't do a flip turn in a pool, which is fine with me.
Yeah.
But yeah, so there are some things that I do avoid, but it's not as bad, and it normally that feeling will go away within an hour or so.
You know, it's so crazy. The kid that threw the rock was 19, and I remember, I don't know, a few months ago I was watching the news, and there was some lady on the news who had gotten hit by a shopping cart that some like young kid had like thrown off of a balcony, and it hit her. And it's like,
Oh my gosh.
it's just so, and she's fine, but like she went through like years of plastic surgery and all these things to get her
Oh,
everything back together. But it's just like one of those things that like young kids do, and they aren't thinking, oh, this might kill somebody. Maybe they are, I don't know, but like just like so sad how like one decision like that could totally change their life and your life, whoever the victim is, you know.
yeah, yeah. And I mean, when they found, I guess they checked out the overpass and just kind of saw, a pile of rocks. So it was like an intentional,
Mm.
thing, which, I mean, I don't think I hope that wasn't his intention, but it is kind of, crazy to think and see. And I'm sure they saw the domino effect that happened,
Yeah.
because it happened, not far from the bridge. So definitely
Did
crazy.
he get caught and did he go to jail?
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, I don't know how true this is, but I did hear that it was a teacher that heard him because he was talking about it at school.
Oh
Um,
wow. Oh
and
wow.
I think he was still in high school. And so he was talking about it in school, and a teacher overheard and was, kind of went from there. So,
Wow. Okay. Well, let's get into your post college career. What do you do for work?
so I am a product owner, and I work at a cybersecurity company here in Boulder. And how I got into that, I was looking for a part-time job, and I kind of did a bunch of different things when I moved to Boulder. But I was surfing on Craigslist, and I found kind of this sketchy post that was like, "We need someone from 10 to 2." And didn't say what it was, what I'd be doing. But as a runner, I'm like, perfect.
Yeah.
I can get my morning run done, and then I can, do weights or double, and there's still sunlight. This is perfect. And so I responded to the ad, and it ended up being a cybersecurity company here in Boulder, really close to where I live. And it was a front desk reception job. And so I just worked in they had 3 buildings. And so I was one of 3 receptionists, and it was super low key. Um, and yeah, it kind of worked out great. I did that for a little bit. But as I was feeling unfulfilled, just in that job, because I kind of just, sat there and greeted people. And I definitely wanted a challenge outside of running. And so kind of sat in on some meetings and learned what the company was about, learned about the product. And Logarithm was great and gave me a chance, and interviewed me and hired me for a product position. So I've been working there full time since right before the pandemic. So it's been great.
What does it mean that you're a product owner?
Yeah, so it's kind of a specific role in a certain type of framework, for software development, but I pretty much just own the product, where I give kind of the business value to the software engineers and developers, and make sure that what they're building is what the product needs to be, and what the market wants.
What did you go to school for?
I studied business and econ at
Okay.
Oregon.
Okay.
So just like kind of a general major, and I came out just not really knowing exactly what I wanted to do. And I know that I still wanted to run. So those first few years after college, I know that, a lot of people kind of struggle trying to find, the right balance. And it does take a long time to kind of figure out what you want to do, and how running fits in there. And it is a hard transition, especially because you're used to doing track, and the road race scene is different, and you're probably not as comfortable with it. And track, as a post collegiate unsponsored person, is a very expensive hobby. It's not, I mean, you have to pay for everything that you do. I mean, from your hotel to your flights to get into the meet. And you can run really great and get a PR and feel really excited and happy about it, but no one's paying you, no one's reimbursing you. You know, you kind of just give yourself a good job and then move on. And so moving away from the track and moving onto the roads kind of gave me a bit more of feeling like a professional athlete. They fly you out, they treat you really well, you stay in a hotel, and then there's prize money. And it's not typically about the money, but more just how you feel at these races. Like you're like, this is something serious, and you know, it's maybe not my main thing, but I'm a professional athlete in this environment. So I really appreciate that about road racing. And so I think moving from my focus to the track to the roads really kind of helped that post collegiate transition.
Oh, yeah, I bet. You know, I interviewed Sarah Vaughn before CIM. She was like, "Yeah, I just signed up online for the race." I was like, "You signed up online? You didn't like?" And then she said that she ended up talking to them because she needed bus information and they reimbursed her and everything. But
Yeah,
I'm
they were
like,
like, you should be in the elite field. Like,
why would you pay
yeah.
for your entry? Yeah. Like
Hmm.
a humble thing, maybe. I don't know. But yeah, you know, it's interesting because, well, I was just talking to someone on my parenting podcast about like that post college, like few years. Like I was talking to the woman about like her kids being at that part of their life, like, and how exciting it is to like see your child like start off like this is your life now, like you're done with college, like this is your adult life now. um but man, I look
Hmm.
back, and this isn't about athletics, but like I don't know, those first few years out of college were like I felt lost, you know, like I felt like
Oh yeah.
everybody has real jobs and I'm like I was a receptionist at a doctor's office and like I didn't know what I was doing. And so I always like think that time sounds exciting, but when I really look back I'm like, oh no, I was like totally lost for like 3 years.
Oh my gosh. And there's just, you know, all these feelings of being a failure. You go from competing at a high level and being super focused and dialed in. You're like, I'm getting my degree and I'm trying to, you know, make it to NCAAs or whatever your athletic goals are. And then I was just kind of floating around. My living situation, I lived in some really gross, dingy places that were like worse than college.
Yeah.
And so um, I definitely felt lost. And, you know, not that I just kind of felt like a loser. Like I was like, what am I doing? I'm not making any money running, or, you know, not finding any success in running, not feeling athletically like I'm reaching my potential. But I'm also, you know, this time when all my friends are getting jobs, I'm trying to look for these, you know, part-time things, or being an assistant or being a receptionist or a nanny, which is totally fine because I had these other goals, but I just wasn't really achieving any of them. And so, yeah, that wasn't like a glorified part of I don't look back on it and be like, oh, I wish I could be back in there again. I just, you know, it was kind of like a means to find where I needed to be, you know?
Yeah,
So,
for sure. Yeah, I've told this story before on the podcast, but I found myself crying in like a laundry room one time, and my my then boyfriend, but my husband now's like apartment complex to some random girl that he went to high school with because she's had some like real job at Eli Lilly, and he had a real job, and I was like still doing the receptionist thing, and just like,
yeah.
oh my gosh. But yeah, so if that's you, friends, you know, you're not alone. Okay.
It's yeah, you'll figure it out.
It'll,
It's
yeah,
yeah.
it'll get figured out for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so you ran with Nomad Distance Project. You're with Rise Athletics Boulder now. Talk to us about your like progression with the different teams that you've run with.
Yeah, yeah. So I actually was brought out to Boulder to join Roots Running, and so that's kind of what brought me out here. I looked at a few different teams. I think it was the team in Sacramento, NorCal Distance was still together, so I kind of looked at them, and ultimately decided to move out to Boulder. Joined Roots, was with Roots for about a year, and like I said, I just kind of wasn't in a place in my life where I was really happy and wanted to be. So running wasn't going well. So I left Roots, but I made so many great friends in Boulder and I wanted to stay here. So I just kind of did my own thing for a little bit. I joined Hudson Elite for a short period of time until that kind of fell apart. And then,
Is
oh
that
gosh,
is
what did I
that
do
Brad
after
Hudson's
that?
group?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. yeah, and that's where I met Haruni, and we've been, really close friends ever since. And
Oh, you were just in her wedding.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
I saw those pictures on your Instagram. They're beautiful.
Oh, yes, it was such a beautiful wedding. She did an amazing job planning it, and it was such a fun time. Yeah, it was awesome. But yeah, so then after Brad, I was remotely coached by Steve Magnus, um, and that was great. It was a really good setup, and through the trials, and then I kind of took a break from running during the pandemic. Really didn't feel motivated or excited about running for a long time. So maybe ran, I don't know, 10, 15 miles a week for a
Wow.
little bit. And then I like so small that it wasn't even worth it to count. Um, and then, yeah, I coached myself for a little bit and then decided that, I needed a coach to really help me achieve my goals. And that's when I joined Rick's group. So
So
it's been
does
good.
Rick coach you or does Nell coach you?
Rick coaches me.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Wow. How long were you doing the like 10 to 15 miles a week thing?
Ooh,
The face
I
she
want to
made.
say, yeah. Um, I really didn't start training until maybe December of 2020.
Okay.
So, yeah, from March to December. I would sometimes join friends to run, but I just wasn't super, it was just hard. I'm super race motivated, so there weren't any races on the schedule. And so I'm not kind of a go out there and just grind till I want to pass out kind of person. I'm more of like, I want to achieve this goal and like this will get me there. So without that, I just kind of bopped around and um, looking back, I mean, I think I probably would have been happier if I stayed on a structured schedule. But I think I needed that mental break, especially after the trials. It's pretty tired, and so I think the training that I've done since that break has been a lot better, and so I think just my body benefited big time from that huge time off.
Yeah, I'm sure it did. I'm like really, truly, that was probably a great gift you gave yourself. Um,
Yeah.
2019, it was Grandma's your debut marathon.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so 2019, you debuted at Grandma's 2:35:11. I see that you've also done Monumental Half a couple times.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that race. It's really well organized. Matt does a great job treating the athletes really well, and I like it's kind of like more of a low key race, but there's pretty good competition, and I've just had kind of a great progression at that half. Kind of really leaning in and seeing what I can do in the half. So I think the first time I ran it was 73 mid. And that was when I hadn't run a marathon and was trying to get, I was thinking about maybe getting the halftime just to like be at the trials.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was kind of like my taste of like, oh, I can do this, or it was like a realistic goal for me. So I've always had fun at that race. So it's really well run. Have you run it?
Yes, the full,
Yeah.
but
Okay.
it's my hometown race. We live in Raleigh now, but
Oh,
yeah,
okay. Okay. Awesome. Yeah. I love it. It's a great course.
that's why it's so exciting to me that I saw that you had ran it because I lived in Indiana my whole life, and actually
Okay.
the half runs right by the house we used to live in, like right around mile 9.
No way.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, when you were through all those neighborhoods. Okay.
Yeah, like
That's
those
awesome.
old
Right before you
historic
kind of turn
homes.
down.
Yeah,
Mhm.
you're going south. You're going back towards the city when you run by our old house.
Okay. That's
I
awesome.
think it's like
Because
mile.
yeah, then you have that 3 mile long
Uh-huh.
stretch
Yeah, down
right before you get
Meridian.
there. Okay. Hmm.
Yeah. So I'm sure I saw you run by my house before I knew who I probably didn't know who you were at that point, but like cuz we would always
Yeah.
stand out front and like we would have like a PBR station, and like once the
Oh,
people that were like
nice.
kind of there for fun more than racing, we would like hand out beers and
Oh, that's
yeah, it
awesome.
was super fun. But yeah, I love that race too. And I always just think it's interesting cuz they do bring in some like solid elite runners, but
Hmm.
you don't see a ton of like names you recognize there, I guess you would say.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, they did a really good job leading up to the trials, giving, bonus incentives if you hit the time. And so it was cool. I think there was just he's done a great job of kind of building this race, and bigger names come each year. So it's pretty cool.
Oh, for sure. And I failed to mention too. Yeah, I guess it was 2019. That year, so many trials qualifiers came through, and that was
Yes.
really exciting. That was a really fun year.
Yeah, yeah. It's cool. Cool to watch. I haven't run the full marathon, but Haruni's run it. And it seems like a pretty good course. So,
Yeah, it's funny. I've only done the marathon. I have not done the half. I think I've probably run that marathon 3 times, 4 times.
oh
I don't know,
wow.
3 or 4 times. My PR
Okay.
is on that course. So
Oh, nice.
yeah,
Awesome.
it's so flat, and yeah, it's great.
Yeah. Although I did hear that there's a hill by the cemetery or something, or
Yeah, but
no?
like you wouldn't. I
Not
feel like
really.
living in Boulder, like it's us Indianapolis people think it's a hill, but like it's really not that
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah, yeah, a slight incline. Okay.
Yeah,
Good
totally.
to know.
Okay, so you debuted 235 grandmas. You ran the trials 237. Tell us about your trials experience.
Yeah. Honestly, that whole weekend, I was super stressed just because there were so many people packed into a small area. And so, like, small things like getting up and down the elevator, it took almost like 20 minutes because there were so many floors and so many people. So it was just kind of a whole, just a stressful environment for me. But the most fun I had the whole weekend was the race. I had
Mm.
such a great time. I ran with a woman that I sometimes run with from Boulder Underground, Bria, and we ran pretty much the whole race together. So it was really awesome having her to kind of work through the tough parts together. The actual race was so hilly to me. The first 8 miles, my quads were destroyed, and I was like, "Well, we got a long way to go." Um, but it was so much fun. The energy was awesome, and I really enjoyed being able to see the men as we were running as well, because there were a lot of Boulder athletes. My friend Dan Nestor also was leading, and so I was freaking out. I was like, "Oh my gosh, he's
Could you
out
see
in the
him
lead by a
at some
lot."
point?
Hmm.
Okay, I
Yeah,
can't
so
remember how that was.
there were a lot of times where we kind of crossed paths with the men, so I could kind of, I was like trying to focus on my race, but also was looking over trying to see how the men were doing. Um, so it was really fun. So I think once I kind of got through the race, a lot of that stress and the nerves of just kind of claustrophobic and so many people, the race was really the best part. So it was awesome. It was a really cool experience. I
It's a
would love to make it again.
it's a
So.
like crazy wonder that all of us that were there didn't get COVID that weekend. Like, cause that was like right when everything was about to like go down.
Yes, yes. It was crazy. And also just, I mean, I'm sure everyone did, kind of thinking back to all the crowds and all the
Yeah.
people just spewing
We had no
their
idea.
yep, yep. So hopefully we can someday get back to that safely.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was, yeah, a
Okay,
lot of
so
people.
and you finished next to Jordan Hesse, didn't you?
Yes, yes. That was kind of like my
Were you like, whoa, what's going on? What are you doing?
yeah, yeah. I saw her maybe I want to say in the last 10K, I kind of saw her up ahead.
Mm-hmm.
And was definitely bummed for her because I
Yeah.
mean, she was having a tough day. But I'm just also, really inspired that she was having a tough day and didn't drop out and just gutted it through. But I mean, we ran together briefly at Oregon, and so she's a good friend of mine. But I also saw her in that last 400 and was like, I'm gonna go for it,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
leaned her out at the line.
Yeah. I mean, you got to do
So
it's your race.
yeah, yeah. So I mean, I finished the race and was super pleased and happy with how it went, and I felt bad because she was super disappointed with how hers went. But still, I mean, mad props to her for finishing, and um, she's a great runner, so she'll be back for sure.
Yeah. I wondered as I was looking at the results there, I was like, I wonder if they crossed paths at Oregon.
Yeah, yeah, we overlapped for 2 years, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is she
So,
is she 2 years older than you? 2 grades ahead, or is she behind?
yeah.
She's older.
She's older.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Okay. Yeah, I too remember seeing her finish that race and just thinking that it was I was super admirable of her to like. She didn't
Mhm.
want to run a 2:37 that day, like.
Oh my gosh, no. Yeah.
um,
Especially when you think, she's run 220.
yeah,
Like that's yeah. So definitely bummed for her, and Galen was there and consoling her. So um yeah. But I was, I mean, like I said, mad props to her for finishing, because a lot of people did, drop out of that race
for
with the
sure.
mind of, the 10K coming up, which
Yeah,
never happened. But yeah, she gutted that out. She's tough.
totally, for sure. Okay, so this race, CIM, you had that nice little break, little like mental
Mhm.
and physical refresher. And so I'm curious what else happened in training that got you in such great shape and in such great place to run that 2:29.
Yeah. So I think I started getting back into running December 2020. And then that spring I was like, oh, I think I might get back on the track and mix it up. I just tried to find things that excited me about, running. And so I think Trials of Miles did those 10Ks, or they had some track meets. And so I signed up for the one in Austin, and just training myself, hopping into other people's workouts as they made sense. It was really fun for me, and running super social for me. So I just really enjoyed it that spring. And then after that 10K, which I PR'd and I was super happy, and was feeling excited about running again, I got a little banged up. I had like it was like a plantar Achilles insertion area that was really bugging me. So I took about 3 more months off of just doing nothing. And then I want to say maybe September, I kind of started training again and feeling healthy, feeling good. Um, and I signed up for a bunch of fall races and was thinking about doing CIM. And then as I got closer to my first race, which was the 25K, I was like, I cannot self-train going into a marathon. I need someone to hold me accountable and, have a bigger plan. And so then I started working with Rick about 8 weeks out from CIM,
Oh,
and
wow.
was like, hey, I need a coach. Will you coach me? Sorry, it's like crunch time, but I got a marathon in 8 weeks. And so he was super great, and wrote out, a whole plan for me, and did his best to kind of, put something together with, as little information as he had. And it worked out great. I had been doing some workouts with Nell before I joined, and I also would link up with Haruni every now and then. So he had seen me around on the track, and was always super positive and kind. And so I was like, oh, he would be a great coach. So it's been a great fit.
What were you at, like mileage wise, with that 8 weeks to go?
Um, since I started in September, I had probably just gotten up to 85 when I started working with him. And so then I probably averaged about 95 miles a week for most of my block.
Is that the
Yeah.
most you've ever done?
Um, for an average before a marathon, I think so. I feel like my mileage going into the trials was pretty inconsistent.
Mm.
I think I hit 100 miles maybe once, and then was in the high 80s. But I feel like I was a little bit more consistent with hitting around the high 90s in this build up. And I think that really helped, was just kind of having that consistency of miles. Because my marathons, I feel like I really struggled in that last 10K before CIM.
And you felt good in the last 10K at CIM?
Yeah, yeah, I did. I felt like,
Good is relative, I do understand.
yeah, yeah. My quads were definitely, CIM was a lot hillier than I had expected. I didn't do a course preview, which now I wish I would have. And everyone had been telling me, they're like, oh yeah, there's a bunch of rollers and then it's flat the last 10K. And uh, yeah, it was definitely a lot. I wish I would have done some downhill running, some hills, to kind of prepare me for that, because I felt like I definitely felt it in my quads, and was just kind of trying to hold it together because I was really afraid of blowing up with just on how my quads felt. But I didn't feel that, that like the wheels are coming off, 10K to go, which I had felt, the past two marathons, where once things start going south, it's like there's no fixing this.
It's the
You're just
worst
trying to
feeling.
survive.
Yeah. So do
Oh
you
my
feel like this
gosh.
is like the first marathon you've had like the real recipe to like finish with what you know you're capable of?
Yeah, yeah. I think I kind of was just biding my time and maybe was a little bit traumatized from those marathons before. So the last mile I picked it up just a little bit, but I think the whole time just kind of like waiting for it to hit. And so I think that now that I've had the experience of CIM, I can be a little bit more aggressive, with the faith that, I'm not going to have some, catastrophic blow up. Or if I do, I at least went for it. So I think I was just maybe a little bit more conservative, just really trying to hit that A goal that I had of, breaking 2:30. And I kept on being like, okay, I'm in this great group of women and pacers and things are going really well, but it could happen any second. So yeah, but I think I just have now the confidence to maybe push the envelope a little bit more.
Yeah, it's almost like you need that in your like history to be able to then like push the envelope like you said and like take the extra risk because like okay, you can do it.
Yeah, yeah. And I think if I wouldn't have the experience of blowing up 10K to go, I probably would have been a little bit more like,
Yeah.
ah, let's do this.
Yeah.
But I don't think, and I felt like my grandma's, I didn't go out insanely, and so it still happened. So I think that um, I just had that experience and was trying to be cautious. But I felt like my training leading up to it was so much. I just had so much more confidence from my training build up, and so I knew that it was going to be a pretty good day going into it.
And then how long were you packed up with everybody and when did Sarah leave and did you run with oh my gosh, what's her name?
Carrie.
Yeah, Carrie. Did you run with
Hmm.
Carrie for most of the race?
Yeah. It was honestly such a big pack of women and men, that we were in, and so I didn't really even notice that Sarah kind of took off because she was yo-yoing for a bit, at the front of the pack. For since the downhills, she would kind of just cruise on the downhills, and then the pack would kind of catch her. But she yo-yoed for a little bit and then kind of took off. And I didn't really see the actual move, but then I think there was one time we were going downhill and I saw a little tiny speck, and I was like, oh, that's Sarah.
There
Like,
she
look at her
is.
go. Yeah. Um, but yeah, I think we stayed as a pack until I want to say mile like 22 or so. Um, and then I want to say I didn't feel like I was picking it up, but I guess I was, because at one point the pacer was like, hey, like you're running awesome, super excited for you, but I'm going to stay with like the 2:30 group. So then I knew that I was running a little bit ahead of 2:30 pace, which kind of gave me that extra little boost to be like, okay, like I'm doing this, and less than 3 miles to go. I was like, I can make it. So yeah, I think the great thing about CIM, and especially as a woman, is like you're never alone.
Yeah.
And so it's just like such an awesome thing to experience. And you don't really, if you're having a tough spot, people are encouraging you, and you can encourage them when they have their tough spot. And it's, complete strangers that you've never met. So it was a really fun experience those last like 3 or 4 miles. So.
I'm not sure. Is there a better race to try to PR at? Seriously.
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard to not want to just run it every year.
Yeah.
Because yeah, it's a great course.
Oh man. Okay, so are you married? Are you engaged? Or are you dating?
I'm dating.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah,
And we can cut that, Emma, just so you know. Okay. So I was like, I don't know if she's married or not, but because I wanted to just talk about your boyfriend then being a triathlete.
yes, yes. He is a triathlete. He does ITU, Olympic distance. And yeah, it's been good. I mean, he started out as a runner. He ran at CU. He also swam in high school. So we definitely have that running connection. And he's always like looking at races, wanting to do running races, and then being like, oh, like I need to focus on triathlon
Yeah.
because I think running is kind of like, his first love, and he loves running and racing, and being competitive. So yeah, it's he works harder than anyone I've ever met. He trains really hard. And it's definitely motivating for me, because I mean, I'm not a grinder, and he definitely is. And so I think that we kind of balance each other off. If he's like, oh, I'm going to, bike for 5 hours and then run 16 miles and then swim 5K, I'm like, maybe just pick two. And if I'm like, oh yeah, I'm just going to go run 6, he's just like, 6?
That's it.
Maybe. So I feel like we balance each other out pretty well of, you know, him, encouraging me to, not to do more, but just, I guess, motivate me. And then I feel like I'm kind of his voice of reason to, you don't have to do it all. You can kind of less is more, in his case. But yeah, it's been good. He actually paced me at grandma's for the first 16 miles,
Oh,
which
cool.
was really nice. Yeah, I think he had just come back from, I want to say, Kazakhstan, and kind of had a quick turnaround
From like a
to pace me at
competition.
grandma's. Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, it was great. Well, I mean, it was great while he was there, and then I mean, I only lasted a few more miles before the wheels came off, but yeah, it was really helpful and great to have him there.
How did you guys meet?
So we met at the running event.
Oh,
He was sponsored by 361, and at the time they were just sending me shoes. And so they wanted kind of athletes to be there at their booth, and so they flew both of us and another athlete, Maggie, out from Boulder. And so Morgan gave us a ride, and we sat next to each other on the plane. And I was like, oh, he's kind of cute, and kind of went from there. So yeah, that was in 2019, I want to say, fall of 2019.
all right. So
So
361. Do they get like credentials if you guys ever get married one day? Do they get like a shout out at the wedding? Like, thanks.
yeah, thanks. A little yeah, I mean, definitely the Sean Frack was there, so he saw it happen.
That's so good. I
Yeah.
love it. So, what's on your mind for 2022?
Um, I do want to get back on the track. Um, it, it's hard because I am now in love with the road scene, and I love road races, and that's really what excites me. But I also feel like, um, for me to really improve my marathon, I really want to improve my speed. That's kind of my biggest weakness. So I think if I can get some faster PRs on the track, that'll translate to my marathon. So I'll do that this spring. Sound Running has a bunch of races in LA, and my parents live in San Diego.
Oh,
So I'll
nice.
just stay at their place and drive up. So it's super easy for me. And um, let's see, other than that, I want to do a fall marathon, I think. I'm not really sure which one. I would love to do a major. I've never done one, and they always seem so cool. So that would be really awesome.
Yeah, you got to do a major. So you lived in San Diego and now you live in Boulder, and then Oregon. Are those the three places you've lived your whole life?
Hmm. Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
not
kind
bad
of like,
places.
yeah, I was gonna say like, kind of amazing.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I will say that the winters in Boulder, I do struggle just because, it's the most extreme winter that I've had. But I mean, Boulder has so many people from the Midwest who have moved here, and they're just like, oh my gosh, like the weather here is incredible. And I'm like, "Ugh, have you been to San Diego? Like,
It's the
there's no
sun. I
snow."
think it's for the Midwest
Yeah.
people. It's that it's so sunny all the time.
Oh, totally. And this, I mean, it'll snow, but then within a few days it'll melt and you can see the ground. So, I haven't spent many winters in the Midwest or even East Coast, but I've seen that the snow just lingers, and that would be tough.
Okay, I listen, I love the Midwest. I think the nicest people live in the Midwest, but
Mm-hmm.
um I winters are they suck. I mean, they just do.
Yeah.
I've been from living there my entire life, and I don't think you can beat a Midwest fall. I think that a Midwest fall is the most beautiful. It is just incredibly beautiful in the fall. But
Mm.
like, this is our first winter away from Indiana, and I'm like, I mean, it's 45 and sunny today here. And I'm like, that feels for January. I'm good with that. And I know the weather's like
Yeah.
crazy this year. It's like everything's weird, but yeah, no, winter in the Midwest. I'm happy to divorce that.
Yes. Yes. I remember just being like, oh, why do people
Live here.
live there? But then, I mean, as you get older,
It's
family and,
family, yeah.
support system, friends, it's hard to beat that. So,
Yeah, it's really January and February that just like I mean, it's seasonal depression too, and I do think that
yeah.
weather has a lot to do with that.
Yeah. When I ran in Duluth, I think it reminded me of like a gerbil or like hamster. All the buildings are connected with this glass like skyways or something. And I was like, that is so bizarre. But I guess that's a normal thing in the Midwest is
Oh,
everyone
because
just
because it's so
stays
cold in the
inside.
winter. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Oh my gosh, that's so funny. Okay, well, let's wrap up here with some end of the podcast questions. What is something professionally or personally that you would like to do that you haven't done yet?
Um, I would love to learn a language. I mean, I took German in high school and wasn't that great at it or consistent. And just being in Mexico, I just feel like, or anytime I travel internationally, I kind of feel like a selfish American that
Mm.
just expects everyone to know my language. So I would love to learn another language and be able to use it traveling. So that'd be really
So,
cool.
do you know what language you want? Do you want to learn Spanish?
I think Spanish would be a, a good start for me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
probably the most useful in
Hmm.
your travels. Um,
Yeah.
what's the best most recent book you've read?
So I read two on my Mexico trip, and one was a book that I just found at the resort. It was like left on a chair, and so that was kind of like not a guilty pleasure read, but it just was maybe like an airport book that
Yeah.
someone bought, and it was called Shut Eye, The Shut Eye, and it was kind of like a thriller book. And then the other book I read while I was in Mexico was Passing, and that was a really good book. They also have a Netflix like short on it, which I'm really excited to watch as well.
Passing. Who's the author? Do you know?
Um, I the book is around here somewhere, but I don't know it off the top of my head. But it was written in the 1920s about these biracial women who were passing as white um,
Oh.
in society. So it's good.
I can't remember what book I read that had a storyline. I think it was a Brit Bennett book, The Vanishing Half. Yeah, it had a
Oh,
did you read that?
I haven't, but I've seen it. Yeah.
Yeah, both of her books, The Mothers and The Vanishing Half, are really good. But there's a storyline of two sisters, and one of the sisters has very light skin, and that's what she lives her life as a white woman, and it's and just very interesting as it follows like their two different stories.
Yeah, yeah, that's interesting because this her book kind of focuses on two women who are both passing, but the way that they their reasons for passing are just kind of different,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of their path to that, and the needs that they have, or just like the societal um, pulls that they feel from both cultures. So it's really interesting.
Wow. Okay. Who is someone fun, motivating, or inspiring that you would like to have coffee, tea, or cocktail with?
Someone who I'd love to have coffee with is my high school cross country coach. I haven't seen him since before the pandemic, and he's a really close family friend. It's been a long time, so I'm dying to see him in person and catch up.
Is he still? He's in San Diego.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
nice.
Yes.
What is your last message to leave with our audience today?
Um, I mean, I think that I really struggled in those years post collegiately of trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And I think that feeling lost, like you said, is that's totally fine and totally normal, and that things will eventually come together. I've definitely talked to a few other recently post collegiate athletes, and they've all kind of resonated with those feelings. And I think that you don't have to worry, things will come together. So feeling lost, feeling, like you're not moving anywhere, you are. It just takes a while to, find your footing. It'll all work out.
Thank you so much, Molly.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.